Hey, what's up, Lycans? I've had a fair few comments on my controller guide video asking about Elite 2 controller settings. So in today's video, I'm going to go over how I've set up my personal Elite 2 controller. Just quickly before we start, the channel's growth has been amazing lately, so let's keep that going. If you enjoy my content and you want to see more, please consider hitting that subscribe button below, hit the bell to get notified when I upload. We're climbing steady to that 1,000 subscriber mark. We'll do something real special when we get there. A like and a comment always helps with the algorithm, so if you have any of your own tips for setting up an Elite 2 controller, let me know in the comments below. So before we dive into the software side of the controller, we're going to take a look at the controller itself. I personally run with the standard stick size on the left and the tall stick on the right. The taller stick, I find, gives you a little bit more extra fine control on those small movements. I've opted for the standard D-pad, as you can see. I just think it looks better, to be honest. I don't like the look of the other one. On the back, spin the controller around quickly. Sit on here. So on the back of the controller, I've got all 4 paddles on. I highly suggest just throwing all of them on and practicing with them, to be honest. Try to find a setup that can go across multiple games when you come to mapping, which we'll talk about in a little bit, so then you can really get that muscle memory working. When I set up Sea of Thieves, so these trigger stops, I set them to the smallest setting. When you flick that over, it means the furthest you can push your triggers down is that much. Same on this side. Do that with all FPS games that I play. I really enjoy FPS games, and it really gives you that sort of mousy, clicky type feel to them. And adjust that. So yep, up. That will give you full range. And then very little range. The middle section gives you sort of a mid-range control. Just flip that controller back around. So on the last little setting, you've bought an Elite 2 controller, you'll notice it comes with this small tool. So you'll see inside the analog sticks is a little Phillips head screw in there. What you can do is wind that in or loosen it off, and that will give you extra tension or less tension for the stick. So what I've done with mine is tighten that screw in there as far as it will go, and it just gives you a little bit extra tension when you move that stick around. What that will do, it will let you play on higher sensitivities but still be able to stop the twitchy thumb that you get sometimes when you play on a controller a lot. So let's put that back together, and then we can move on now to the software side. So head into your apps. We're going to open Xbox accessories, and we're going to find our controller. Mine's aptly named Tugger after our epic boat on Sea of Thieves. Make yourself a profile. We're going to head over, we're going to hit edit, and first off we've got mapping. So the way I try to approach mapping my paddles on any game is, what do I need to do in the game where I need to keep my right thumb over the right thumbstick. So the obvious one for me, the first one is jump. So I do this on every game. I've got my right top paddle mapped to A. So that makes my movement a lot easier. Second one I've done with Sea of Thieves is X on the bottom right paddle. So what this does is when I'm boarding, I can grab the ladder with my right stick, keep tapping X while I'm doing it, so I can get them boards a little bit easier. It also makes it a lot easier to do the drop off a ladder and re-grab trick. I've mapped sprint to top left, so I do this on every game that I play now. I've always got sprint there. It happened, I broke my left stick on an older controller playing Destiny, slamming that left click down to sprint. since I mapped it to a paddle, I've realised it's a hell of a lot more responsive than using it on the stick. So the stick takes a few extra milliseconds to push down and actually get it to register. So running that on a paddle's made a massive difference to me. It says it's mapped to down here. That's because in Sea of Thieves itself, I changed sprint to the down on the D-pad button so that I can map my throwables then to the left click so I can get them out nice and easy. Lastly, I've mapped weapon swap to bottom left just to make that a little bit quicker for when I'm fighting. Main thing when you're mapping is one profile won't suit everybody, so copying what I've done might not work for you. Just trying to have that mindset. What's your main job on the game you're playing? In this case, Sea of Thieves. So for example, if you're the crew's build rat, it might make sense to map the bucket to one on the D-pad and then map that to a paddle maybe. Try and think a little bit outside the box and find a mapping that works for you. Left stick on the response curve I've kept the same, and I have done as well on the right stick. I normally adjust this on other games, but Sea of Thieves has got its own response curve setting. You can use in-game response curve settings. They tend to be better than what you get here. What it will do is it will work with the game you're playing properly. So for example, on Sea of Thieves, if we set the response curve to delayed, which is quite a popular one, what that will do is it will also work when you're trying to shoot cannons, when you're trying to use the harpoon. Makes it feel a little bit awkward, so I leave it on default. And then in Sea of Thieves, I'm going to link my controller video above. I go into response curve a little bit more in depth in there. I use the in-game response curve setting, as that doesn't affect the cannon shots or the harpoon. Triggers. So when we were talking earlier that I set my trigger stops to the shortest setting, this is to get a very fast response, almost like a mouse click. So what I've done here is set the left trigger and the right trigger. If you hit this, you can alter them at the same time. I've moved my setting up to 95 and 100, so only a tiny bit of that trigger needs to be pressed to be registered. What that will do is, as you can see, you can ADS so quickly. It only takes milliseconds off what you're doing, but in a really sweaty fight, you only need to take milliseconds off to gain that advantage and win. So again, this gives you a more mouse click, ADS and shoot sort of feel to it. Vibration and brightness, that's just down to your own personal preference. Set these to wherever you want. It doesn't really make a difference to the actual gameplay itself. And that's it. A link again to my more generalized controller video at the end of this. It should be popping up about now. For now guys, as always, take it easy, stay safe, and we'll see you on the seas.